The world faded to black, and I was floating in a surreal haze. My name is Sarah Brooks, and I have just died. My soul hovered above my lifeless body in a sterile San Francisco hospital room, the beep of monitors silenced forever. Below me, my boyfriend Ethan Carter knelt beside my hospital bed, his face buried in his hands, tears streaming down his cheeks. The cameras flashed, capturing every sob for the evening news. "I can't live without her," he choked out, his voice trembling with rehearsed grief. Sarah was my everything. I'd give anything to trade places with her. The reporters aided up their lenses, zooming in on his quivering lips, the perfect picture of a devastated lover. But as the crowd dispersed and the hospital hallway quieted, I saw the truth unravel in a way that ripped my soul apart. Ethan stood wiping his tears with a quick flick and turned to Dr. Emily Harper, my attending physician. Right there, next to my cold, lifeless body, he wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into a passionate kiss. Their clothes, his leather jacket, her white coat tangled and fell across my transparent coffin, landing on the faint smile still frozen on my face. I wanted to scream, but souls don't have voices. Instead, I was forced to listen as Ethan's cold and venomous words echoed in my mind. "I've been waiting 5 years for this day, Emily," he whispered, his lips brushing her ear. "Ever since that earthquake when I saw her legs just mangled slabs of flesh hanging by threads of skin. I thought, God, that's disgusting. Why didn't she die right there?" 5 years, and I finally got to see her gone. 5 years ago, the San Francisco earthquake of 2020, a 6.5 magnitude disaster tore through our city, collapsing buildings and lives alike. I was 22 then, a graphic designer living in a cramped Mission District apartment with Ethan, my boyfriend of 3 years. We'd been playing video games when the ground shook and the ceiling caved in. I threw myself over Ethan, shielding him from falling debris, my legs crushed under a concrete beam. I screamed for help, my voice hoarse, my body numb with pain. Ethan, dazed but unharmed, crawled out from under me. I saw him look back, his eyes meeting mine as I begged Ethan get help. But he didn't. He stood there, frozen, then turned and ran. I learned later as a soul that he'd told the rescue team he heard nothing. No cries, no one trapped. He wanted me gone. The real hero wasn't Ethan. It was Ryan Hayes, our neighbor from the apartment above. Ryan, a quiet engineering student I barely knew from high school, had torn through the rubble with his bare hands, blood dripping from his shredded palms, until he found me. An aftershock hit, and a slab of concrete crushed him while he shielded me, leaving him in a vegetative state. I owed him my life, but didn't know the truth then. I thought Ethan had saved me, and I spent 5 years believing his lies, my heart tethered to a man who saw my survival as a burden. As a soul, I lingered in the hospital room, invisible, watching Ethan and Dr. Harper laugh over a glass of wine later that night. "She was so gullible," Ethan said, smirking. "All those videos I posted playing the devoted boyfriend pure gold. Millions of views, and she never suspected a thing." Dr. Harper nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. "You played it perfectly. Her suffering was our ticket to the big time. I wanted to shatter their glasses, to scream that I'd given everything for Ethan, my legs, my dreams, my trust. But I was just a wisp of air, powerless, until a strange warmth pulled me toward a new realization: this wasn't the end." Before I move on, let me pause for a second. If this story's hitting you hard, maybe you're as shocked as I was by Ethan's betrayal. Want to share your thoughts? Drop a comment below. Tell me what you'd do if you found out someone you loved pulled something like this. And if you're hooked, hit that like button and subscribe to catch the rest of my journey. Trust me, it's about to get wild. I'm not just a ghost anymore, I'm getting a second chance and not wasting it. My soul drifted untethered until I found myself at a cemetery overlooking the bay. There I saw Ryan Hayes, frail in a wheelchair, his hands scarred and trembling as he clutched a photo on my tombstone. "Sarah," he whispered, tears streaking his face. "I failed you. I should have told you how I felt." His words hit me like a tidal wave. Ryan had loved me silently since high school. He'd written me love letters every week, slipped them to Ethan to pass on, but Ethan had claimed them as his own, stealing Ryan's heart to win mine. Ryan had followed me to college as an exchange student, then moved into my building, always watching from a distance, too shy to confess. Now, near death himself, he mourned me with a sincerity Ethan never had. The weight of his sacrifice, contrasted with Ethan's betrayal, ignited something in me. I wasn't just a victim, I was a fighter. and I'd been given a chance to rewrite this tragedy. As Ryan's sobs faded, a blinding light enveloped me, and I felt my soul yanked backward through time, through pain, until I woke with a gasp in my apartment, my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was February 14th, 2020, the day of the earthquake. I was alive again, reborn, and I wouldn't let Ethan destroy me twice. 5 years. That's how long Ethan Carter milked my suffering for fame and fortune, all while I lay in a hospital bed believing he loved me. In my past life, after the 2020 San Francisco earthquake crushed my legs, Ethan transformed himself into the internet's favorite martyr. He started a YouTube channel caring for Sarah, posting daily vlogs of himself spoon-feeding me soup, changing my bandages, and wiping my tears. "She's my hero," he'd say to the camera, his voice soft, eyes glistening. "I'll never leave her side." The comments poured in. "You're an inspiration, Ethan. Sarah's so lucky to have you," and so did the millions of followers, turning him into a social media saint. I watched every video, my heart swelling with gratitude, never suspecting the truth. Behind the scenes, Ethan was building an empire on my pain. He launched an online store under my name, selling t-shirts, mugs, and bracelets branded with slogans like "Stay strong, like Sarah." He claimed half the profits went to disaster relief charities, but I later learned as a soul that not a dime reached those causes. Instead, he and Dr. Emily Harper, my attending physician, splurged on a Pacific Heights penthouse with a rooftop hot tub and a garage full of sports cars. They'd laugh over champagne toasting to pity points while I struggled to breathe through infected wounds. Dr. Harper once said her legs are perfect for clicks, her voice cold as she lounged in Ethan's arms. Those scars, those stumps, people can't look away. The worst part, my legs could have been saved. In the hospital, after the quake, Dr. Harper had told me infection had set in, that amputation was inevitable. I believed her, trusted her, even as the pain grew unbearable. But as a soul, I overheard her confess to Ethan, "We let the infections fester, made for better content. Healthy legs don't get sympathy donations. They deliberately neglected my care, ensuring my condition worsened to keep the views and money rolling in." I'd pulled out my own oxygen tube once, thinking I was a burden to Ethan, begging him to let me go. He'd held my hand, whispering, "I need you, Sarah," and I'd believed him, clinging to his lies while my body deteriorated. Ethan's deception wasn't just financial, it was personal. In high school, I'd received weekly love letters, heartfelt notes detailing my quirks, like how I doodled stars in my sketchbook or hummed Beatles songs off-key. They were signed E, so I assumed Ethan wrote them. He'd smile when I thanked him, saying, "I just wanted you to know I see you." Those letters won my heart, but they weren't his. They were from Ryan Hayes, our shy neighbor, who'd loved me silently for years. Ethan had taken Ryan's letters, claiming them as his own, stealing my trust and Ryan's chance to be seen. When I confronted Ethan in my past life, asking why he never wrote anymore, he'd shrug and say, "I'm too busy taking care of you." I'd felt guilty not knowing he was a fraud. As a soul, I saw Ethan's true life unfold. After filming a tearful vlog, he'd slip out to meet Dr. Harper at upscale bars in the Marina District, their laughter echoing as they planned their next video. "Let's show her struggling to sit up," Dr. Harper suggested once. "Cripple content gets the most shares." Ethan nodded, already editing the footage in his head. They'd return to the hospital where I lay hooked to machines, and he'd film me with a gentle smile, whispering, "You're so strong, babe, for the camera." Meanwhile, he was funneling donations into offshore accounts, buying designer watches while I begged for pain relief. The betrayal cut deeper because I'd given everything for him. In the earthquake, I'd thrown myself over Ethan, my body taking the brunt of the collapsing ceiling. My legs were crushed, but I thought I'd saved the man I loved. Instead, he'd stood over me, watching me scream, and walked away. He knew Ryan was digging me out, risking his life, but told the rescuers no one was there. He wanted me dead, not because he hated me, but because my survival complicated his plans. A dead girlfriend was a tragedy. A disabled one was a goldmine. In those 5 years, I wasn't just a victim of the quake, I was a prisoner of Ethan's ambition. He'd turn on the camera, narrating my daily struggles like a nature documentary, while I smiled weakly, thinking he was documenting our love. I'd whisper, "Thank you, Ethan," and he'd wink at the lens, knowing each view was another dollar. When I was on the verge of another amputation, my body weak from infection, he'd film my pain, captioning it. Her courage inspires us all. I believed he was sharing my story to give others hope, not realizing he was selling my suffering. Learning the truth as a soul broke something in me, but also sparked a fire. I wasn't just Sarah Brooks, the girl who lost her legs. I was a fighter, and I'd been given a glimpse of the life I could have had if Ethan hadn't stolen it. Ryan's sacrifice, his quiet love, haunted me. I couldn't change the past, but I could feel a pull, a chance to rewrite the future. As Ethan and Dr. Harper toasted to their latest scam, my soul began to fade, drawn toward a light that promised redemption. I wasn't done yet. San Francisco. February 14th, 2020 was coming. This time, I'd be ready. My soul drifted through a fog of grief and rage, untethered from the hospital room where Ethan Carter's betrayal had shattered me. I was Sarah Brooks, no longer bound by the broken body that had defined my last 5 years, but haunted by the truth of how I'd been used. As I floated over San Francisco, the city's twinkling lights blurred below, guiding me to a quiet cemetery overlooking the foggy bay. Under a gnarled oak, I saw Ryan Hayes, the neighbor I barely knew in life, now frail and hunched in a wheelchair, his scarred hands trembling as he clutched a faded photo on my tombstone. His sobs cut through the night, raw and guttural, each one a dagger to my spectral heart. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice breaking, "I failed you. I should have told you how I felt. I should have fought for you." Ryan's words hit me like a tidal wave, pulling back the veil on a love I'd never seen. In high school, he'd been the quiet kid in my art class, always sketching in the corner, his shy smile flickering whenever I passed. I hadn't known then that he'd written me love letters, weekly notes slipped to Ethan filled with details. Only someone who truly saw me would notice the way I twirled my pencil, when nervous the doodled stars in my sketchbook, my off-key humming of Beatles songs. Ethan had claimed those letters, signing them with an E to steal Ryan's heart for himself. Ryan's perspective, revealed now in his grief, painted a different story. He'd followed me to college as an exchange student, sitting in the back of my design lectures, hoping I'd glance his way. When I moved to the Mission District, he'd taken the apartment above mine, telling himself it was just to be near to protect me if I ever needed it. "I thought I had time," he choked out to my grave. "I thought you'd see me one day," but the 2020 San Francisco earthquake had stolen that time. Ryan had been home that day studying for his engineering finals when the ground roared. He'd heard my screams from the rubble, my voice faint under the collapsed ceiling of my apartment. Without hesitation, he'd clawed through concrete and rebar, his hands tearing open, blood mixing with dust, until he found me pinned under a beam. "Hang on, Sarah," he'd whispered, his voice steady despite the pain. An aftershock hit and a slab of debris fell. Ryan threw himself over me, taking the blow that crushed his spine, leaving him in a coma. I'd been told Ethan saved me, and in my naivety, I'd believed it, never knowing Ryan's sacrifice until now, as a soul watching his tears stain the earth. His regret mirrored my own. In those 5 years of my past life, I'd been blind to Ryan's love, tethered to Ethan's lies. I'd spent my days in a hospital bed, thanking Ethan for his devotion while Ryan lay in a vegetative state, his body as broken as my legs. Seeing him now barely alive, mourning me with a sincerity Ethan never had, ignited a fire in my chest. I wasn't just a victim of Ethan's greed, I was a fighter, and Ryan's sacrifice deserved more than this tragic end. I thought of the hospital where Ethan and Dr. Emily Harper had laughed over their profits, exploiting my pain for millions of views. I thought of my legs, which could have been saved if not for their sabotage. And I thought of Ryan, who'd given everything for me without asking for anything in return. As a soul, I felt a pull, a warmth that wasn't death, but something else, a chance. Ryan's voice grew faint, his wheelchair creaking as he turned away from my grave. "I love you, Sarah," he whispered one last time. The world shimmered, and my soul was yanked backward through layers of time and pain until I jolted awake in my Mission District apartment. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, the screen glowing. February 14th, 2020, 4:30 p.m., the day of the earthquake. My heart pounded as I touched my legs, whole, strong, alive. I was reborn, given a second chance to rewrite this tragedy, but I wasn't the only one. Later I'd see it in Ethan's eyes, a flicker of recognition, a terror that confirmed he had been reborn, remembering our past life. He knew what he'd done, and he knew I knew, but I didn't care about him, not yet. My mind was on Ryan, the neighbors, and our shoddily built complex, and the lives I could save. I grabbed 2 bike helmets from the closet, my hands shaking with purpose. The clock was ticking 42 minutes until the 6.5 magnitude quake would strike. This time I wouldn't let Ethan's betrayal define me. I'd save Ryan and myself and let Ethan face the consequences of his own making. I stood in my cramped Mission District apartment, heart racing, the date on my phone searing into my mind. February 14th, 2020, 4:30 p.m. In 42 minutes, a 6.5 magnitude earthquake would rip through San Francisco, collapsing our poorly constructed apartment complex and setting off a chain of events that had destroyed my life once before. I was Sarah Brooks, reborn, my legs whole and strong, beneath me, no longer the mangled stumps Ethan Carter had exploited for profit. My hands trembled as I clutched two bike helmets, their hard shells promising protection. I had a second chance, and I wouldn't waste it. My goal wasn't revenge, not yet, but survival for myself. Ryan Hayes and every neighbor I could get out of this death trap. I glanced at the photo on my nightstand, a snapshot of me and Ethan laughing at a Golden Gate Park picnic. His smile, once my anchor, now twisted my stomach. In my past life, I'd believed he'd saved me from the rubble, not knowing he'd left me to die, ignoring my screams to save himself. Worse, I'd learn later that he was reborn too, his guilty eyes confirming it when we crossed paths during the chaos. He remembered his betrayal lies and the millions he'd made from my suffering. But I pushed him out of my mind. Ethan could wait. Ryan, the quiet neighbor who'd torn his hands to shreds to save me, was my priority. I had to get him out of his apartment, out of harm's way, before the ground shook. I sprinted to the closet, yanking out a backpack and stuffing it with essentials, a flashlight, a water bottle, and a first aid kit. My mind raced, replaying the past life's horrors, Ryan's coma, my legs crushed, Ethan's fake tears for the cameras. But this wasn't a memory, but a chance to rewrite it. I strapped on one helmet, the other dangling from my hand for Ryan, and bolted out the door. The hallway smelled of stale coffee and laundry detergent, the same as it had 5 years ago. As I passed Ethan's apartment, he stepped out. His dark hair tousled, a gaming controller in hand. "Sarah, where are you going?" He called, his voice casual but edged with something new. Recognition, maybe fear. I ignored him, my sneakers pounding the linoleum. "Screw your games, Ethan," I muttered under my breath. He didn't matter now. The elevator was too slow, so I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heart hammering as I checked my phone. 4:40 p.m., 32 minutes left. I burst into the apartment complex's office, a cluttered room with a flickering fluorescent light. The property manager, Mrs. Jenkins, looked up from her crossword puzzle, startled. "Sarah, what's—" I didn't let her finish. I lunged for the intercom, slamming the button. "Attention residents of Bayview Heights." I shouted, my voice echoing through the building. "Free TVs, groceries, and gift cards at the community park in 5 minutes. The first 5 people get a 50-inch flat screen, first come, first served." Mrs. Jenkins gasped, her pen clattering to the desk. "Sarah, you can't just—" I cut her off, leaning closer to the mic. "This is approved by management, don't miss out." It was a lie, but panic was my ally. I heard doors slamming, footsteps thundering as neighbors poured out toward the park. Mrs. Jenkins grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. "Did you clear this with corporate?" I grinned, thinking fast. "Call Mr. Thompson, he'll confirm. But you'd better hurry, those TVs won't last." Her skepticism melted into excitement, and she bolted for the door, shouting, "Wait for me, I'm coming." I stifled a laugh as the 60-year-old woman outran me, vanishing into the crowd now flooding the park. One task down, but Ryan was next. I dialed the property office's emergency line, knowing they'd relay my message. "Is Ryan Hayes in Unit 7B?" I said, breathless. "I found his wallet outside, $1,000 cash, and his ID. Tell him to meet me at the community park in 10 minutes, or I'm spending it all at a dive bar." The clerk hesitated, then agreed. I hung up, hoping Ryan would bite. But when my phone rang moments later, his voice was confused. "Sarah, it's Ryan. My wallet's right here at home." Damn. My heart sank, but I remembered his shy smile at my grave, his quiet love. I had to get him out. "Ryan Hayes," I said, lowering my voice to a playful tease. "I like you. I'm ordering you to the park in 1 minute so I can confess in person. Don't show, and I'll post in the neighborhood chat that you wear Star Wars boxers." Silence, then a flustered rustle. "I'm coming," he blurted, and the line went dead. I grinned, adrenaline surging. The park was filling with neighbors lured by my fake giveaway, safe from the building's collapse. My phone read 4:50 p.m., 22 minutes until the quake. I sprinted toward this park, the second helmet bouncing in my hand, my mind fixed on Ryan's face, on the life I could save. Ethan's reborn eyes might haunt me later, but I was rewriting our story for now, and no one, not even fate, would stop me. The clock on my phone glared at me, 4:50 p.m., February 14th, 2020. 22 minutes until the San Francisco earthquake would tear through our shoddily built Bayview Heights apartment complex, a 6.5 magnitude beast that had stolen my legs and Ryan Hayes' future in my past life. I, Sarah Brooks, was reborn, my legs strong beneath me, a bike helmet strapped to my head, and another clutched in my hand for Ryan. My heart pounded as I sprinted toward the community park, the Mission District's late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. My fake intercom announcement promising free TVs and groceries had worked. Neighbors poured out of the building, their chatter a chaotic symphony of excitement and confusion. I'd bought them time, but Ryan was still inside, and every second felt like a tightening noose. I weaved through the crowd, scanning for Ryan's lanky frame and shy smile. In my past life, he'd saved me from the rubble, his hands bloodied only to end up in a coma for his sacrifice. I'd thought Ethan Carter, my traitorous boyfriend, was the hero, not knowing he'd left me to die, his reborn eyes later betraying his guilt. Ethan was in this chaos, maybe even watching me now, but I didn't care. My focus was Ryan, the neighbor who'd loved me silently since high school, whose letters Ethan had stolen to win my heart. I'd tricked Ryan into coming to the park with a fake story about his wallet, then a playful confession to lure him out. 1 minute, or I'll spill about your Star Wars boxers, I'd teased, and he'd laughed, flustered, promising to come. The park was a frenzy of residents, families with strollers, teens in hoodies, even Mrs. Jenkins, the property manager, clutching her purse as she jostled for a spot. "Where's the TV guy?" someone shouted, and I bit my lip, guilt mingling with relief. The lie had saved them from the building's collapse, but I needed Ryan here. My phone buzzed 4:55 p.m. I redialed the property office, my voice sharp. "Ryan Hayes, Unit 7B. Did you tell him about the wallet?" The clerk sighed. "He's on his way, said he's bringing a kid who lost his mom." My heart lifted, then sank. A kid. No time to process. I pushed toward the park's edge, eyes locked on the apartment building's entrance. Then I saw him, Ryan, his dark hair messy, a bike helmet loose on his head, leading a small boy by the hand. The boy, maybe 6, clung to a stuffed dinosaur, his eyes wide with fear. Ryan's face was flushed, his gaze darting until it landed on me. "Sarah," he called, his voice a mix of relief and embarrassment. "Sorry this kid couldn't find his mom." I cut him off, grabbing his arm. "No time, Ryan. Run." I shoved the second helmet into his hands, my own voice trembling. The ground felt steady, but I knew better. 17 minutes until disaster. We turned toward the park's open field, the boy stumbling between us. The crowd was thick, neighbors arguing over the non-existent giveaway. "Where's the free stuff?" a man yelled, and Mrs. Jenkins shot me a suspicious glance. I ignored her, pulling Ryan and the boy along. I told the kid to stay with the crowd, spotting a frantic woman calling out his mother, I hoped. I pushed him toward her, then grabbed Ryan's hand, his calloused fingers warm against mine. I said we must stay clear of the building, and my voice was urgent. He nodded, trusting me despite the confusion in his eyes. I glanced back at the apartment complex, its cracked facade looming like a tombstone. Ethan was likely still in his unit somewhere inside, maybe gaming or oblivious. His reborn memory would know what was coming. In my past life, he'd stepped into the elevator just as the quake hit, trapping him in a twisted fate. I didn't care if he made it out this time. My priority was Ryan, the man who'd given everything for me, and the neighbors I'd lured to safety. I checked my phone, 5:05 p.m., 7 minutes. My chest tightened, memories of the past life's rubble and pain creeping in. I squeezed Ryan's hand, grounding myself. "Stay close," I whispered, and he nodded, his eyes steady, unaware of the love he'd carried for years. A low rumble stirred the air as we reached the park's center. The ground twitched a subtle warning, and the crowd hushed. "What was that?" someone muttered. My breath caught. It was starting. I pulled Ryan tighter, my mind racing with the weight of this second chance. I'd outsmarted the disaster so far, but the real test was coming, and I wasn't letting go, not of Ryan or hope. At 5:12 p.m., the earth roared. The San Francisco skyline shuddered as the 6.5 magnitude earthquake tore through the Mission District, a beast of nature unleashed. I, Sarah Brooks, stood in the community park of Bayview Heights, gripping Ryan Hayes' hand, our bike helmets glinting under the fading February sun. The ground bucked beneath us, screams erupting from the crowd I'd lured out with my fake giveaway. Trees swayed, branches snapping, and the apartment complex across the street groaned, its cracked facade splitting like paper. Windows shattered, spraying glass into the air, and a thunderous crash echoed as the lobby's massive chandelier smashed to the ground, shards glittering in the dust. My heart pounded memories of my past life flooding back. My legs crushed Ethan Carter's betrayal, Ryan's bloodied hands digging me out. I was reborn this time, and I wasn't returning to that nightmare. Ryan's eyes widened, his grip tightening on mine. "Sarah, what's happening?" he shouted over the chaos. The boy we'd rescued clung to his mother, now reunited in the park, their sobs blending with the crowd's panic. I pulled Ryan toward the open field, away from the teetering buildings. "Stay here," I yelled, scanning the park. Thanks to my intercom stunt, most neighbors were safe, but the building was collapsing and I knew Ethan was inside. In my past life, he'd been trapped in the elevator, his legs pinned to fate he'd later turn into a twisted mirror of my own suffering. His reborn eyes had flickered with recognition when I'd passed him earlier. He knew what was coming. Let him face it. My focus was Ryan, the man who'd sacrificed everything for me. The ground shook again, a violent tremor sending cracks snaking through the pavement. A delivery truck tipped over, spilling packages, and a pot of bamboo from the lobby rolled into the street dirt, scattering. I glanced at Ryan, his face pale but resolute. He said we need to help anyone still inside, his engineering instincts kicking in. Before I could stop him, he sprinted toward the building where a middle-aged man, Mr. Thompson, a neighbor, lay trapped under the chandelier's golden base, groaning in pain. "Ryan, wait!" I shouted, my voice lost in the rumble. Memories of his coma, his broken body surged through me. I couldn't lose him again. I tossed him my spare helmet, the one I'd brought for him, and ran after him, my sneakers crunching on glass. The lobby was a war zone, ceiling tiles, dangling walls, buckling dust, choking the air. Ryan knelt beside Mr. Thompson, whose leg was pinned, blood pooling beneath him. "Help me lift this." Ryan grunted, his hands already on the chandelier's base. I grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall, my arms shaking as I wedged it under the metal, creating a small gap. Together we heaved Ryan's face red with effort, his hands unscarred this time, straining. 1, 2, 3, I counted, and we dragged Mr. Thompson free, his groans fading as we pulled him toward the exit. A deafening crack split the air. The ceiling above us sagged, chunks of plaster raining down. "Run!" I screamed, shoving Ryan and Mr. Thompson toward the door. We stumbled into the street just as the building's upper floors collapsed, a cloud of dust swallowing the entrance. My chest heaved relief, mixing with dread. We'd made it, but others hadn't. I glanced at the rubble, knowing Ethan was trapped somewhere inside his reborn memory, likely screaming with the same terror I'd felt 5 years ago. I pushed the thought away, focusing on Ryan, who was helping Mr. Thompson to a grassy patch, where neighbors gathered, some crying, others shouting for loved ones. "Sarah, you okay?" Ryan asked, his voice hoarse, his helmet crooked. I nodded, my throat tight. The park was a sea of faces, safe because of me, but the aftershocks would come and more dangers loomed. I thought of my past life, the hospital bed, Ethan's fake tears for the cameras while he profited off my pain. I thought of Ryan bleeding out to save me his love, hidden until it was too late. Now, standing beside him, I felt a flicker of strength. I'd outsmarted the Quake's first blow, but the fight wasn't over. I said we need to keep moving, my eyes on the horizon where the city trembled under a darkening sky. Ryan nodded, his hand brushing mine, a silent promise. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The San Francisco sky churned with dust and smoke, the ground still trembling from the 6.5 magnitude earthquake that had just ripped through the Mission District at 5:12 p.m. on February 14, 2020. I, Sarah Brooks, stood outside the collapsed Bayview Heights apartment complex, my heart racing under the bike helmet strapped to my head. Beside me, Ryan Hayes, his helmet slightly askew, supported Mr. Thompson, the neighbor we'd just pulled from under a fallen chandelier. The community park buzzed with neighbors I'd lured to safety, with a fake giveaway announcement, their faces a mix of shock and relief as they huddled on the grass, safe from the building's collapse. But the victory was short-lived. My eyes locked on the rubble where our apartment complex once stood, knowing Ethan Carter, my traitorous ex-boyfriend, was trapped inside his reborn memory, likely haunted by the same terror I'd felt in my past life. I pushed Ethan from my mind, focusing on Ryan, the man who'd saved me in that past life, his hands bloodied, his body broken. I'd saved him this time, but the aftershocks were coming and danger still loomed. Ryan said we need to check for others, his voice steady despite the chaos. His engineering instincts drove him, but I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes, the same fear he'd carried at my grave, mourning a love he'd never confessed. I nodded, about to follow, when a sharp crack split the air. A massive ceiling beam, jagged and heavy, broke free from the lobby's remains, plummeting toward us. "Move!" I screamed, shoving Ryan and Mr. Thompson forward. But my foot caught on debris, and the beam crashed down, pinning me beneath its weight. Pain seared through my legs, a sickening echo of my past life when I'd lost them saving Ethan. Panic clawed at me, my breath shallow, as I flashed back to 5 years of hospital beds, Ethan's fake tears, and his betrayal as he profited off my suffering. "No," I whispered, clenching my fists. "Not again." My helmet had saved my head, but the beam pressed across my thighs, concrete chunks digging into my skin. I fumbled for my phone, its flashlight revealing the suffocating pile trapping me. Sarah Ryan's voice broke through the dust, frantic but determined. He scrambled back, his hands clawing at the rubble, his face red with effort. "Hang on, I'm here." Neighbors rallied around him, their faces grim but resolute. Mrs. Jenkins, the property manager, grabbed a fire extinguisher, wedging it under the beam to create a small gap. A young woman, a nurse named Clara, shouted instructions. "Lift together." Now Ryan and 3 others heaved their grunts, mixing with the creak of metal. The beam shifted just enough for Clara to slide another extinguisher underneath, propping it up. My legs throbbed, but I felt them still there, still whole. Ryan reached for me, his hands shaking as he pulled me free, my body scraping against the concrete. I collapsed against him, gasping as the crowd cheered softly, their relief palpable. Clara knelt beside me, her fingers pressing along my legs. "Can you feel this?" she asked, her touch gentle but firm. I nodded, wincing. "Bruising and swelling from the pressure," she said, her voice calm. "No fractures. Your lucky circulation's intact. Rest in ice and you'll be fine in a few days." Relief flooded me, but so did a wave of nausea. I'd come so close to reliving my past life's nightmare. Ryan's arm steadied me, his eyes searching mine. "You scared me," he murmured, his voice thick. I managed a weak smile, my hand squeezing his. "I'm okay, thanks to you." As Clara bandaged my scrapes, I glanced at the rubble. Ethan was still in there, likely trapped in the elevator, his fate a twisted mirror of mine. In my past life, he'd left me to die, telling rescuers he heard no cries. Now I felt no urge to save him. But another name surfaced, Lily Parker, a neighbor from the 4th floor, known for her viral videos about living with a heart condition. I'd later learned she was a fraud, her illness a scam to milk donations, but in that moment I knew she was trapped too. The thought of others' suffering stirred something in me, not pity for Ethan, but a need to keep fighting. Ryan helped me to my feet, my legs shaky but functional. The park was a makeshift refuge, neighbors tending to each other's wounds, sharing water and blankets. I leaned against Ryan, my mind racing. The aftershocks and rescue teams were coming, but I'd already changed the story. Most residents were safe, and my legs were intact. Yet the weight of my past life lingered, Ethan's lies, Ryan's sacrifice, my own buried trauma. I took a deep breath, vowing to process it later, maybe with a journal or a therapist. For now, I had to stay sharp. I said, "We need to help with the rescue," my voice steadier. Ryan nodded, his hand still in mine, a silent promise that we'd face this together. The Mission District was a war zone, the collapsed Bayview Heights apartment complex, a jagged heap of concrete and steel under a dust-choked San Francisco sky. It was February 14th, 2020, minutes after the 6.5 magnitude earthquake that had nearly trapped me again. Sarah Brooks, stood on shaky legs in the community park, supported by Ryan Hayes, my helmet scratched but intact. My thighs ached from the beam that had pinned me, but they were whole, unlike in my past life when I'd lost them saving Ethan Carter. The crowd around us, neighbors I'd saved with a fake giveaway announcement, huddled in shock, some tending to minor injuries, others staring at the rubble where loved ones might be trapped. My heart raced, not just from the pain, but from the knowledge that Ethan, reborn like me, was buried in that wreckage, his eyes likely wide with the same terror I'd felt 5 years ago. Rescue teams arrived, their sirens piercing the chaos. Floodlights cast stark beams across the debris, illuminating a grim scene, the elevator shaft half exposed where Ethan and Lily Parker, a 4th-floor neighbor, were trapped. Ethan, my ex-boyfriend, who'd profited off my disability while leaving me to die, was pinned by the elevator doors, his legs crushed. Lily, a 20-year-old known for her tearful TikTok videos about her heart condition, was trapped beneath a massive concrete slab teetering above her. I'd later discover Lily's illness was a scam, her videos a ploy to fund a lavish lifestyle, much like Ethan's exploitation of me. But now their lives hung in a fragile balance, and the rescue team faced an impossible choice. A burly captain, his face streaked with sweat, barked orders as his team assessed the shaft. Carter's legs are bad, bleeding heavily, a medic reported, crawling out from a narrow gap. Parker's alive, but that slab could crush her if we moved the elevator. The team huddled, their voices low but tense. Cutting into the elevator to free Ethan risked destabilizing the slab, potentially killing Lily. Digging a tunnel to reach her first would take hours, time Ethan didn't have. I stood nearby Ryan's arm, steadying me, my mind churning. Ethan's reborn gaze had met mine earlier, his shock confirming he remembered his betrayal. He knew I knew he'd left me to die, told rescuers I wasn't there all to save himself. Now he was the one begging for help. Lily's voice, weak but shrill, echoed from the shaft. "Please get me out." "He's probably dead already," she screamed, pounding the walls. Her panic sent loose debris tumbling, drawing gasps from the crowd. I'd seen her videos in my past life, her delicate features, her tearful pleas for donations, her heart disease earning millions in sympathy. But a later expose revealed she'd been cured years ago, using the money for designer bags and vacations. Her manipulation mirrored Ethan's, and I felt a cold satisfaction knowing they were trapped together, their fates intertwined. Yet a part of me, still healing from Ethan's lies, wanted no one to suffer, not even them. The rescue captain turned to the crowd, his voice grim. "We need family contacts for Carter and Parker. Anyone?" No one answered. Ethan's parents were estranged, and I'd learned Lily had cut ties with hers to hide her scam. The team debated, their faces etched with strain. "Carter's more stable," a medic said. "We can save him faster, but it risks her." Another argued, "Parker's got a heart condition, she won't last long." I bit my lip, knowing Lily's condition was a lie, but stayed silent. Ryan squeezed my hand, his eyes questioning. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded, though my heart was a storm. I was starting to process my trauma, scribbling thoughts in a mental journal. Ethan's betrayal, my lost legs, the shame of being a spectacle. I needed to heal, but first I needed to survive this day. The captain made the call. "We save Carter first. Higher chance of survival." They brought in cutting tools, the screech of metal filling the air. I stepped closer, peering into the shaft. Ethan's face, pale and bloodied, turned toward me. His eyes widened, a mix of pain and recognition. "Sarah," he rasped, "help me." The exact words I'd screamed to him in my past life when he'd walked away. I crouched, my voice low so only he could hear. I said, "Hang in there, Ethan," forcing a tremble into my tone. "You'll get through this." His gaze flickered with guilt, knowing I remembered his lies, his affair with Dr. Harper, and his sabotage of my legs. I stood, my legs steady, despite the ache, and turned away. Ryan stayed close, his presence a quiet anchor. He didn't know the whole story, my rebirth, Ethan's betrayal, but his instincts told him I was carrying something heavy. "You don't owe him anything," he said softly, reading my face. I nodded, my throat tight. The rescue team worked fast, sparks flying as they cut into the elevator. The slab above Lily wobbled, and my breath caught, but I didn't move closer. I'd saved who I could, Ryan, Mr. Thompson, the park full of neighbors. Ethan and Lily would face their fates, and I'd face mine stronger than before. The San Francisco air was thick with dust and the acrid scent of metal, and the collapsed Bayview Heights apartment complex was a jagged scar under the dimming February 14th, 2020 sky. Sarah Brooks, stood in the community park, my legs bruised but intact, leaning on Ryan Hayes for support. The 6.5 magnitude earthquake had just struck, and the rescue team's floodlights cast eerie shadows across the rubble where Ethan Carter, my ex-boyfriend, and Lily Parker, a manipulative neighbor, were trapped in the elevator shaft. My reborn heart pounded not with fear for them, but with the weight of my past life, Ethan's betrayal, his exploitation of my crushed legs, his lies that had stolen 5 years of my life. His reborn eyes, wide with recognition when he saw me earlier, confirmed he remembered it all. Now he was the one pinned, his legs mangled while I stood free. The rescue team had chosen to save Ethan first, his condition more stable than Lily's, who was trapped beneath a teetering concrete slab. Their cutting tools screeched, slicing through the elevator's casing as the crowd held its breath. I stood back, Ryan's hand steady on my arm, his quiet presence grounding me. In my past life, Ethan had left me to die under rubble, telling rescuers he heard no cries. while Ryan, the true hero, had torn his hands to shreds to save me only to end up in a coma. Now, as the team worked, I felt a cold satisfaction. Ethan's fate was a mirror of mine, poetic justice for the man profiting from my pain, with his caring for Sarah videos raking in millions while I suffered. Lily's screams had stopped her earlier pleas. He's probably dead, save me silenced by exhaustion or unconsciousness. I'd learned in my past life that Lily was a fraud, her viral TikTok videos about a heart condition a scam to fund luxury handbags and vacations. She'd started in college, posting tearful updates about hospital visits, her delicate features earning sympathy and donations. An expose years later revealed her heart condition had been cured, but she'd kept the charade much like Ethan's exploitation of my disability. Their shared greed made their entanglement in the same wreckage almost fitting a twisted irony I couldn't ignore. The crane groaned, lifting the elevator's front half, and medics rushed forward. Ethan was pulled free, his face ashen blood soaking his jeans. "He's alive," a rescuer shouted, but the cheers were muted. His legs were crushed beyond saving, and his right hand caught in the debris had lost 3 fingers. He groaned, his eyes finding me in the crowd. "Sarah," he rasped, his voice weak but laced with fear. He knew I remembered his affair with Dr. Harper, his sabotage of my legs, his lies to the world. I stepped closer, kneeling beside him, my voice soft but sharp. I said, "Hang in there, Ethan," forcing a tremble into my tone. "You'll get through this just like I did." His face crumpled, guilt and pain mixing in his gaze, but I stood and turned away, my heart steady. A sudden rumble shook the ground, an aftershock. The slab above Lily shifted and my breath caught, expecting a fatal crash. But the rescuers had braced it just enough, and minutes later they pulled her out unconscious but alive. Medics rushed her to an ambulance, her condition critical but not hopeless. The crowd murmured, some relieved, others shaken. I felt a pang not for Lily, but for the complexity of it all. She was a liar like Ethan, but did she deserve death? I pushed the thought aside, my mind turning inward. I'd started processing my trauma, scribbling mental notes to later journal the shame of Ethan's videos, the weight of my lost legs, the fear of being trapped again. I needed to heal, maybe with a therapist, but for now I had to stay focused. Ryan stood beside me, his eyes scanning the wreckage. "You knew him well, didn't you?" he asked softly, sensing my tension. I nodded, my throat tight. I said he wasn't who I thought, leaving it at that. Ryan didn't push, but his hand brushed mine, a quiet reassurance. He didn't know my rebirth, my memories, but he'd seen Ethan's cruelty in his eyes. In his own past, Ryan had loved me silently, his letters stolen by Ethan, his sacrifice buried under Ethan's lies. Now he was here alive, and I wouldn't let him slip away again. As the rescue team continued their work, I overheard a neighbor whisper about Lily's scam. She was never sick, he said. She used to brag about her Prada bags, which she bought with donation money. The irony stung, 2 manipulators trapped together now facing their own consequences. Ethan would live, but as a shell of himself, his body broken like mine had been. Lily, if she survived, would carry the weight of her exposure. I glanced at Ryan, his face etched with concern for the survivors, and felt a spark of hope. I'd saved him, saved the neighbors, and kept my legs. The earthquake's shadow loomed, but I was rewriting my story one choice at a time. The San Francisco night closed in the air, heavy with dust, and the distant sirens wailed. It was still February 14th, 2020, hours after the 6.5 magnitude earthquake had reduced Bayview Heights to rubble. Sarah Brooks, sat on the grass in the community park, my legs aching, but whole, starkly contrasting to my past life when they'd been crushed saving Ethan Carter. Beside me, Ryan Hayes, his bike helmet scratched and his face smudged with dirt, scanned the crowd for more survivors. His quiet strength anchored me, a reminder of the man who'd saved me in that past life. His hands bloodied, his body broken in a coma. Ethan now pulled from the elevator shaft with mangled legs, and a ruined hand lay in an ambulance nearby, his reborn guilt, a silent weight. Lily Parker, the scam artist who'd faked a heart condition, was in the ICU, her fate uncertain. I'd saved who I could, but the aftershocks weren't done with us. A low rumble shook the ground, another aftershock, and screams erupted. The park's lampposts swayed and a crack split the earth near the rubble, a dark fissure snaking toward us. "Sarah, move," Ryan shouted, grabbing my hand. We ran, my bruised legs protesting, but a chunk of concrete rolled from the wreckage, tripping me. I hit the ground, pain shooting through my ankle, and the fissure widened, a gaping maw inches away. Ryan pulled me up his arms strong, but another tremor hit, and the ground beneath us gave way. I felt a terrifying weightlessness. My scream cut short as we fell into darkness, landing hard on a pile of debris below. Pain radiated through my body, but my helmet had saved my head. Ryan groaned beside me, his breath ragged. I fumbled for my phone, its flashlight revealing a cavern of broken concrete slabs, a fault line that had swallowed us. Ryan was slumped against me, his shirt dark with blood. "Ryan," I gasped, my hands shaking as I found a steel bar piercing his lower abdomen, his white shirt soaked red. He'd shielded me from the fall, taking the hit. "I'm okay," he lied, his voice weak, his face pale. Panic surged, memories of his coma flooding back, but I forced it down. I had to save him. I said, crawling to a medical kit dropped by rescuers wedged in a narrow gap. My hands scraped raw against jagged concrete as I pulled out bandages and antiseptic, my skin tearing with each movement. I wiped blood on my jeans, focusing on Ryan. "Stay with me," I whispered, cleaning his wound, pouring antiseptic, and packing it with gauze, following shouted instructions from above. His eyes fluttered, but he grabbed my hand, his voice soft. "Sarah, I need to tell you something. I've loved you since high school." My breath caught. In my past life, his love letters stolen by Ethan had won my heart, their details so personal I'd thought Ethan knew me. "Those letters," Ryan continued, wincing, "the ones about your star doodles, your Beatles humming, they were mine. I gave them to Ethan to pass to you, but I thought he was my friend. I picked the snow globe, the rose pin, and the red soda from your drawer for you." His words hit like a punch. Ethan had claimed it all, building my trust in Ryan's heart. "I'm so sorry," I said, tears burning. "I thought it was him." Ryan smiled faintly, his hand trembling. "I just wanted you to see me. I followed you to college, but I moved here to be close. When the quake hit, I couldn't let you die." My heart broke, but I kept working, bandaging his wound, feeding him painkillers. "You're not dying now," I said, my voice fierce. I pounded a nearby pipe, screaming for help. "He's hurt. Please." My hands bled, but I didn't stop. Ryan's eyes softened, his voice a whisper. "If I don't make it, promise you'll keep going. You're stronger than you know." I shook my head, tears falling. "No, you're writing me a letter every day like you promised. Don't you dare give up." In the dark, I felt the weight of my trauma, Ethan's lies, the public humiliation of his videos, the loss of my legs. I'd started journaling in my mind, piecing together the pain, vowing to seek therapy when this was over. Ryan's sacrifice, his quiet love, gave me a reason to heal. A muffled shout came from above. "We're coming!" "Hang on." Dust rained down as rescuers dug, and I held Ryan, whispering his name. "I'm here," I said, my voice steady despite the fear. He squeezed my hand, his breath shallow but present. The slab above shifted and light broke through. We were saved, but Ryan's fight wasn't over, and neither was mine. The San Francisco dawn broke over a city scarred but stirring, the dust of the February 14th, 2020 earthquake settling into a quiet aftermath. I, Sarah Brooks, sat in a hospital waiting room, my bruised legs bandaged, my hands wrapped in gauze from clawing through rubble to save Ryan Hayes. The 6.5 magnitude quake had leveled our Bayview Heights apartment complex, its shoddy construction cracked slabs ignored by developers claiming 10 lives and injuring dozens. But my desperate intercom stunt, a fake giveaway of TVs and groceries, had saved most residents, luring them to the community park before the collapse. Ryan, the neighbor who'd saved me in my past life at the cost of his own body, was now in surgery, a steel bar having pierced his abdomen when he shielded me during an aftershock. My heart pounded, not just for him, but for the weight of my reborn purpose to rewrite the tragedy that had once stolen my legs and my trust. In my past life, Ethan Carter, my ex-boyfriend, had betrayed me, leaving me to die under rubble while profiting off my disability with viral videos. His reborn eyes meeting mine during the quake confirmed he remembered his lies. His affair with Dr. Harper, his sabotage of my legs, his stolen claim to Ryan's love letters. Now Ethan was in another hospital wing, his own legs amputated. His hand mangled, a twisted echo of my former fate. Lily Parker, the neighbor who'd faked a heart condition for online donations, had survived the elevator shaft, though she lingered in the ICU. I'd learned her scam began in college, her tearful TikToks funding a lavish lifestyle until an expose unraveled her lies. Their fates felt like karma, but I pushed them aside, focusing on Ryan and the life I could build. A nurse approached her, smile kind but tired. Ryan's out of surgery. The bar missed his major organs lucky guy. He's in recovery and you can see him soon. Relief flooded me, my shoulders sagging as I clutched the hospital chair. I'd saved Ryan this time, and my legs, though sore, were intact. But the trauma of my past life lingered. Ethan's public humiliation, the shame of being a spectacle, the fear of being trapped again. I'd started journaling in my mind fragments of pain and anger I planned to unpack with a therapist. Healing would take time, but Ryan's survival gave me hope. The hospital buzzed with news of the quake's aftermath. Investigations had exposed the developers' negligence, their ignored warnings about the complex's faulty construction, leading to arrests and promises of stricter regulations. The community rallied volunteers, distributed blankets and food in the park, and neighbors shared stories of survival. My broadcast had saved lives, but the loss of 10 souls weighed heavily. I vowed to advocate for safer buildings, maybe through a community group, to honor those we couldn't save. Hours later, I stepped into Ryan's hospital room, my heart catching at his faint smile. He was pale, hooked to monitors, but his eyes lit up. "Scared you, didn't I?" he teased, his voice weak. I laughed, tears spilling, the terror of nearly losing him mingling with the trauma of my past life. I said, "You're not allowed to do that again," sitting beside him. He opened his hand, revealing a crumpled piece of chocolate from his pocket, the one we'd shared in the rubble. "Saved it for you," he murmured. I took it, my fingers brushing his, and cried harder, the gesture unraveling me. Ryan's perspective shifted into focus as we talked. He'd watched me from afar in high school, too shy to confess, writing letters he hoped would make me see him. I gave them to Ethan, thinking he'd pass them on. He said, his voice tinged with regret. "When you started dating him, I thought you chose him. I stayed close to college, and this apartment is near you." His honesty broke something open in me. I told him bits of my truth, not the rebirth, but the betrayal, how Ethan had stolen his letters, gifts, my trust. "I'm sorry I didn't see you," I whispered. He squeezed my hand. "You see me now." We moved to his apartment in the city, a cozy place near my graphic design job, splitting the $300 rent as co-renters. Ryan wrote me daily notes, simple things like, "Your laugh lights up the room," and left small gifts, a sketchbook, a star-shaped keychain. Each one rebuilt my trust, a stark contrast to Ethan's lies. I started therapy, journaling my pain, the humiliation of Ethan's videos, and the fear of losing myself again. Ryan shared his own fears, admitting he'd worried I'd never notice him. His quiet love, a risk he'd taken for years. Our bond deepened, not rushed, but natural, a foundation for something real. The city rebuilt, and so did I, step by step, with Ryan by my side. Spring bloomed in San Francisco, and the scars of February 14th, 2020, and the earthquake faded as the city was rebuilt. I, Sarah Brooks, stood stronger, my legs healed from the bruises of that day, my heart mending through therapy and Ryan Hayes's quiet love. The 6.5 magnitude quake had exposed the truth, not just of Bayview Heights' shoddy construction, which led to a developer's conviction, but of Ethan Carter's betrayal. In my past life, he'd left me to die under rubble, profited off my lost legs with viral videos, and stolen Ryan's love letters to win me. His reborn eyes meeting mine during the quake had confirmed he remembered it all. Now, Ethan was the one, broken, his legs amputated, 3 fingers gone. His life tethered to Lily Parker, the neighbor who'd faked a heart condition for donations. I'd moved on, but fate wasn't done with him. Ryan and I had settled into his city apartment, our lives intertwining through daily notes and small gifts, a mug with a star, a playlist of Beatles songs. Therapy helped me unpack the trauma of Ethan's exploitation, the shame of being a public spectacle, and the fear of being trapped again. I joined a community group advocating for safer housing, channeling my pain into purpose. Ryan, now recovered from his surgery, shared his own perspective, years of loving me silently, his letters stolen, his move to my building, a quiet hope I'd see him. "I almost gave up," he admitted one night, his voice soft. "But when you called me to the park, I thought maybe you felt something too." I smiled, squeezing his hand. "I do now." Scrolling through my phone one evening, I stumbled on a viral video, "Sunny Days with Ethan." Lily, recovered from the ICU, had taken up Ethan's old playbook, filming herself caring for him, lifting him into a wheelchair, cooking meals, massaging his scarred stumps. Her delicate features and soft voice, once used to scam donations for a fake heart condition, now cast her as a saintly caretaker. Their account had millions of followers, and the internet wept over their tragic love story. I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. Lily's scam had started in college, her tearful videos funding luxury trips until an expose unraveled her. Now she and Ethan, both manipulators, were locked in a twisted dance, profiting off his disability as he'd once done with mine. The videos showed Ethan's hollow eyes, his thin frame propped on crutches, his smile forced. Lily narrated, "I wake up at 5:30 to help Ethan, my hero." Comments flooded in. "You're an angel, Lily, but I saw the truth." Ethan was her prisoner, dependent on her whims, his silence a fear she'd abandon him. Their roles had flipped, and I felt a cold satisfaction. I'd learned from neighbors that Lily had latched onto Ethan post-Quake, seeing a new opportunity in his tragedy. Their love was a performance, a viral script echoing Ethan's old lies about me. I decided to confront him, needing closure to move on entirely. Ryan came with me to the hospital, where Ethan was in rehab. He sat in a wheelchair, his stumps hidden under a blanket, Lily adjusting his pillows for a live stream. When he saw us, his face paled, his reborn memory flashing with guilt. "Sarah," he growled, his voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. "Why didn't you save me? This is your fault. I'd be out there living large if not for you." I leaned close, my voice a whisper. "You let go of my hand in the rubble, Ethan. You told the rescuers I wasn't there. My legs could have been saved, but you and Dr. Harper destroyed them. This is what you deserve." His eyes widened, speechless, as Lily glanced over, oblivious. I noticed a pile of designer bags in the corner, her profits from their videos. Ryan touched my shoulder, his presence calm. "You don't need this," he said softly. "Let's go." I nodded, feeling the weight lift. Ethan's life, tethered to Lily's control, was his prison now. He'd stolen Ryan's love, my trust, my youth, but he couldn't touch my future. We walked out hand in hand, the hospital's sterile halls fading behind us. The city was rebuilding new regulations, ensuring safer homes, and I was rebuilding too. Therapy had helped me face the humiliation, the fear, the anger. Ryan's daily notes, scribbled on napkins tucked in my sketchbook, promised a love that saw me, not my pain. "This time I'm here," he said one day, his eyes warm. "You don't have to be afraid." I smiled, my heart light. Ethan's reckoning was complete, but my story was beginning a life with Ryan, with hope free from the rubble of the past.